Today we are going to talk about enterprise auditing in Airflow. My name is Piotr Wieczorek and I'm a lead product manager for Cloud Composer, and today I will have a pleasure to co-present with my colleague Rafal Biegacz, who is a lead senior engineering manager also from Cloud Composer, and we are both from Google. So let's talk about auditing. So when most of us think about auditing, we usually think about boring check-the-box exercise. But actually, for our large enterprise customers, this is actually one of the most important requirements. And this is not a feature. This is for them a prerequisite to do business. And there are three key reasons for it. The first one is regulatory compliance, and this is usually the main driver. And we talk here about companies from public sector, from healthcare, from financial services. And for them, it is the must to prove compliance with mandates like FedRAMP for public institutions, HIPAA for healthcare, PCI DSS for financial institutions, and so on. This list is by all means is not exhaustive. Without that, they simply just can't use the platform. The second one is security and incident response. And let's imagine a situation that the pipeline breaks, or even worse, there is a security incident. Usually the first questions that everyone asks is what happened, who did it, and when they did it. And our large enterprise customers must be able to answer the question whether that was a result of a routine fix of on-call engineer or whether that was a malicious act or potential attack. And then the last one is operational integrity and trust. And this is about giving business a confidence that they can trust the data that they use for their operations and decision making. And this can be achieved by giving them confidence that we can actually differentiate between someone making an authorized fix versus making an unauthorized bypass of security control. And now, as we know, how is it important, like what's the actual questions that we are trying to answer here? And when to fulfill the mandates that I have mentioned on the previous slide, like FedRAMP, HIPAA, there are very specific questions that needs to be answered. And there is an additional challenge that those questions need to be answered from a single auditable source of truth. And the question that needs to be answered are about infrastructure, like who created the environment, who altered the networking settings within the environments. There is also a question about code and config, like who created a DAC, who changed a password in Airflow variable. Then there is operations, and this is usually the key one when we think about Airflow auditing, like who manually triggered a given DAC, or who changes status of a given task to success. And then the final one, that's the one that usually keeps auditors up at night, is a question whether there was anyone who was accessing the database directly and potentially altering any records. And answering each of those questions is actually a pretty difficult undertaking, and to answer all of those questions based on a single source of truth actually seems to be impossible. And why is it so difficult? And it is coming from the fact that all of the data sources and logs are very much fragmented and coming from four disconnected layers. The first layer is the infrastructure layer. So this is where our Airflow is deployed on, and it's obviously completely outside of Airflow application. And usually logs are silos in an individual underlying components like virtual machine, GKE, VPC, and so on. Then there is a second layer, which is usually the one that's usually overseen or usually forgotten, which is a provider access. So let's assume that you file a ticket because something doesn't wrong, and there is a Google engineer that's logging into your environment and is providing a fix. For a number of services, this is a black box. And actually, for our FedRAMP customers, not being able to provide an audit trial that fix happened is actually a deal breaker. Then there's a third layer, Airflow applications, and it seems to be easy, but actually it's not. And the reason for that is that, again, those logs are fragmented. It's like web server produces a logs on one machine, then you have a scheduler that produces logs on another one. And actually answering a simple question, who pressed this famous mark as a success button in Airflow UI, is proven to be more difficult than you can think. And then the final one, which is access to the Airflow database. So let's imagine that someone makes an update operations to the records within the database. And this action actually bypasses all the application logics, breaks the chain of custody, and actually is almost unauditable for most of the Airflow 2 deployments. And as you can see, all of those 4 layers make it actually super difficult to provide an enterprise-grade full audit of Airflow. But luckily, there is a solution to that, and I will now hand over to Rafal, who will walk you through the solution.
Yeah, Piotr presented kind of 4 dimensions where this auditing should happen. And for example, if you are working in a constrained environment and you have some legal obligations, you might actually not have a choice and just deliver this auditing capabilities. So our talk, of course, is in the context of Cloud Composer and how we are providing those auditing capabilities to you. Some of the ideas discussed here, maybe you will be able to apply to your self-managed installations of Airflow, whether you are doing it in the cloud or on-prem. But in certain cases, we need to say that actually very tight integration with cloud service provider services are required to achieve the full auditing capabilities. So maybe let's go quickly through the capabilities of Cloud Composer that are at hand just within a few single clicks when you start creating Composer environment and you are then using it. So when it comes to the first layer, which is like infrastructure, in case of in all the services that, for example, Cloud Composer is built on, they deliver cloud auditing capabilities. You can search through all the logs in a cloud logging service to see who accessed what kind of resource, if there were any changes applied to those resources when they happened, and whether they were authorized. In addition to that, in case of Google Cloud Platform, you can also enclose the whole Apache Airflow environment in a secure enclave, where you define which services can talk to each other and which services are not allowed to be talked to. So, for example, if one of your DAGs, the developer will try to contact an endpoint that is outside of this secure perimeter, you are going to see it in the logs, and this access will be denied. So this is also a good source of information, what things are happening, and by default automatically blocked. In case of Cloud Composer 3 version, we actually went even further, and the whole Composer environment is enclosed within Google protected projects. So regular users of GCP platform won't be even able to, for example, get to the database directly or to the GK cluster. So by definition, you are limiting certain kind of operations or potential insider attacks. So this is layer 1. When it comes to layer 2, this infrastructure is delivered to you by someone. So in case of GCP, this is Google providing the services to you. So if you are using Apache Airflow for critical business processes and you have like compliance control that you need to obey to, you also need to be sure that the very cloud service provider doesn't have access to your critical sensitive resources. So in case of GCP, there is a portfolio of products. This portfolio is called Access Sovereignty, and there is a bunch of features that we will talk shortly about that allow you to provide and define very strict rules who can access your resources, if any access is even possible. Because, for example, there is a feature called access approval, and before any access can be done, for example, let's assume that you have a problem with your Composer environment and you would like Google personnel to step in and help you. you will be able to basically approve this access in a specific time for a period of time that is preferable for you, and only in this period of time that this person will be able to access those resources. Later, this access will expire. Whenever anybody from Google personnel, after your approval, accesses the resources, everything will be logged in the access transparency log. So anything, even whether the person was just viewing or reading configuration settings of Composer environment or doing some other operations, everything will be visible to you. You will be able to monitor it, and if there is any, for example, audit coming from some external company that you need to prove your compliance, you will be able to show those logs as well. When it comes to the layer number 3, which is application, probably a lot of users have access within your company to Composer environments, to Apache Airflow environments, Airflow UI. You would like, of course, to be able to understand who, for example, mark a given task as successful or failed, who triggered a given DAG. So, of course, we have within the web server, we have audit logs, so we can use those logs. There is only minor thing that those logs are stored in the Airflow database, so a potential malicious actor could delete those logs. So we have a recipe or a solution how to address it, and we will talk about it a little bit later. And the last layer is on the kind of data layer, on the DAG level code layer. Hopefully, if you have a very controlled environment, any changes to DAGs are first reviewed by appropriate team members before they are uploaded to Apache Airflow environment. Then, in case of Cloud Composer, those DAGs are uploaded to GCS bucket. Of course, GCS buckets have audit logs, so you can see who uploaded a given DAG at which point in time. So this is another layer of information for you. Maybe in case of Airflow 2, something that is not fully addressed is the fact that if you don't configure it in a special way, all the DAGs have actually access to the whole content of the database, to all the tables. So malicious actor could actually implement a DAG that, for example, deletes entries from the audit logs from the Airflow database. And Airflow 3 actually addresses this issue with internal API, where basically there is another layer of API between DAGs and Airflow database, which can be used to actually authorize all the accesses to the database. So eventually, if you are using Airflow 3 and you applied this internal API approach, then you will be kind of fully protected in the last layer, and you are going to have full auditing solution. Here, we will just skim quickly through some examples. So when it comes to layer 1, here is the log from Cloud Logging that shows that Rafal Biegacz, in this particular case, created a Composer environment. So all the operations done through Composer API leave entries in the audit log, so you can exactly see who created, modified, or deleted a given environment. When it comes to access sovereignty, as I mentioned, we have access transparency logs which show who accessed a given resource. What's more, there are other features that give you a little bit even more control. Like, for example, in case of assured workloads, you can define where your data needs to be stored, and they should not go, for example, outside of a given geo region. In case of Google personnel, for example, you might request that Google personnel needs to be based in US and involved in resolving your support issues. If, for example, you are dealing with situations when Apache Airflow is used for very sensitive data, for example, we are dealing with some government-related data, and only US citizens need to be able to access your environment. So here is another example of access transparency logs. In this particular case, the user created a support ticket. As a result of it, Google personnel from the engineering team accessed the environment. And in this particular case, the project was MySecure Project 789. And this person was trying to catch some file that was corrupted in the bucket. We also mentioned audit logs in the web server. So of course you can go to Airflow user interface and see all the actions performed by the users. And in case of layer 4, like we were mentioning, that someone can, for example, create a DAC, and this DAC might do some malicious things. Of course, you can go to the logs of GCS bucket and see who this person was and what they did, what kind of a new DAC file they uploaded. For example, the malicious actor can also take a snapshot of your or backup of the whole Composer environment and then take the snapshot somewhere else. So all those operations on the buckets will be recorded. Piotr already mentioned all those standards that Cloud Composer out of the box actually provides to you. Maybe I'm not going to go through all of them. Maybe one learning for those who are trying to do self-managed Airflow or they are hosting Airflow on-prem. Sometimes it might be very hard for you to meet those compliance certifications because once again, you need to go through a certification process for all those standards, like for example, FedRAMP High or HIPAA. And on the other hand, very frequently, you need to reprove that you are still compliant, like for example, every year. So it's a lot of work that Google Cloud Service Provider, like Google Cloud, does for you. We mentioned also features like VPC service controls, which allows you to build a secure enclave around your Apache Airflow environment. You can also create environments that don't have access to the internet at all. And of course, you have standard Cloud IAM means to basically control who can access your environment at all. Everything is encrypted at rest, in transit, in processing. So there is no way actually that your data is in the kind of unencrypted form in NF4. One thing that we are working on is uploading audit logs from that are stored in Airflow database into Cloud Logging, because right now in case of Cloud Composer, those logs are only available in Airflow database. So we want to address this potential vector of attack that someone tries to delete a log from Airflow database. Once we upload it to Cloud Logging, you will be able to store the logs on a regular basis, to have everything to available anytime if you would like to show anything to external auditors. And in general, as you can see, there is like 4 layers, a lot of services that we are using when running Apache Airflow. In case of Cloud Composer, this is like tens of different kind of services that we are using under the hood for you. Of course, users don't see those services because everything is kind of well integrated and seamless for the users. But as you can see, the number of possible logs is really big. So I think that we believe that in the future, actually, this is a perfect task for AI agents to actually gather all the logs in, like for you, align them on the timing, just to give the information to you. What actually happened, who accessed a given file, when a given DAC was executed. Yeah, and that's the last slide. Maybe just few key takeaways after our session. So this auditing capability is really multi-layer problem. It's actually very hard to achieve. You probably would need to have a well-organized team working for a couple of quarters to achieve those auditing capabilities. Definitely, self-managed Airflow might be quite challenging when it comes to delivering or using Apache Airflow for very constrained compliance applications. Yeah, Cloud Composer provides this capabilities for you out of the box. And yeah, the future belongs actually to The future is basically agentic conversational. We believe that administrators of Apache Airflow, they will be able to use agents actually to help them to audit, discover what were the access problems, and so on. Yeah, that's the last slide of our presentation.